My parents left me out of the vacation plans, then froze when they realized I owned the resort. The phone rang at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I was staring at my laptop screen, watching the numbers climb on my latest acquisition report. Another seven-figure deal closing in 48 hours. Another step towards something my family would never see coming. Danielle, sweetheart. Mom's voice practically sang through the speaker, but I caught that familiar undertone, the one she used when she was about to deliver news wrapped in fake sugar. How's my busy little entrepreneur? I set down my coffee and braced myself. 20 years of being the family disappointment had taught me to recognize the setup. I'm good, Mom. What's up? Well, your father and I have the most wonderful news. We're taking the whole family to St. Lucia next month. Can you believe it? That gorgeous Azure Bay resort we've been dreaming about for years. My stomach dropped. Not because of the destination. I knew Azure Bay well. Too well. But because of the way she said the whole family with that specific tone that meant I wasn't included. That sounds amazing, I said carefully. When are you going? The 15th through the 22nd. A whole week in paradise. Marcus is bringing Jennifer and Shayna's coming with the kids. Even Grandma Rose is flying in from Atlanta. She paused, and I could practically hear her arranging her words. We got this incredible package deal, but you know how these things work. There were only 6 seats available, and we figured. You figured what, Mom? Well, honey, you're always so busy with your little business ventures. And we know how you feel about family trips after that whole thing in Cabo 5 years ago. The whole thing in Cabo, where they'd spent the entire week making jokes about my failed startup while I quietly paid for half their meals because Dad's credit card kept getting declined. Where Marcus had introduced me to strangers as his sister who thinks she's going to be the next Oprah, while I was actually closing deals on my phone that would eventually fund my first real estate investment. Right, I said slowly. My little business ventures. Don't be like that, Danielle. You know we support you. It's just that this trip is more about family bonding, and you always seem so distant during these things. Plus, with everything you've got going on, we didn't want to pressure you. I walked to my office window and looked out at the city skyline. 30 floors below, people were rushing to catch buses and hailing cabs, living their regular lives while I stood in a corner office that most people would go for. But to my family, I was still the girl who dropped out of law school to chase pipe dreams. Who's going again? I asked, though I already knew. Your father and me, Marcus and Jennifer, Shayna and the twins, and Grandma Rose. 7 people total, but Grandma Rose is getting her own room, obviously. The package was perfect for 3 rooms. 7 people. My parents, my older brother with his wife, my younger sister with her kids, and my grandmother. Everyone except me. When did you book it? Last month. I've been so excited to tell you about it. I kept meaning to call, but you know how things get. Last month. They'd been planning this for weeks, arranging schedules, coordinating flights, probably group chatting about dinner reservations and excursions. And not once had anyone thought to ask if I wanted to come. Danielle? You there, baby? Yeah, I'm here. I hope you're not upset. We really did think you'd be too busy. Especially with that new project you mentioned at Christmas. That new project. The one that had generated $12 million in revenue last quarter. The one that had allowed me to quietly acquire controlling interests in 3 luxury properties across the Caribbean, including one very specific resort in St. Lucia.
No, Mom.
I'm not upset. And I wasn't. Not anymore. I was something else entirely. Oh, good. I was worried you'd feel left out, but I told your father you'd understand. You've always been so independent, so focused on your work. Sometimes I think you prefer it that way. Independent. That was their word for what happened when you got tired of asking to be included and just started building your own table. You know what, Mom? You're absolutely right. I probably would have been too busy anyway. See? I knew you'd get it. Maybe next time we can plan something together, just the 2 of us. A little mother-daughter getaway. Next time. There was always a next time when you were the afterthought child. That sounds nice. I lied. Well, I should let you go. I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Of course you do. My hardworking girl. We'll send you lots of pictures. Pictures. Of the family vacation I wasn't invited to at the resort I now owned. After I hung up, I sat in my chair for a long moment, staring at the phone. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the Azure Bay Resort file. I'd purchased a 63% stake 3 months ago through my investment company, Robinson Ventures. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd named it after the family that never believed in me. I scrolled through the guest list for mid-March and found them. Robinson James. Party of 7. Premium Ocean View Suites. All-inclusive package. They had no idea what they'd just walked into. I picked up my phone and dialed my assistant. Sarah, I need you to book me a flight to St. Lucia, March 14th, and call the resort director at Azure Bay. Tell him the owner is coming for an inspection. It was time for a family reunion they'd never forget. The next morning, I stood in my walk-in closet, staring at rows of designer clothes I'd never worn around my family. They still saw me as the girl who wore thrift store finds and counted pennies for gas money. If only they knew that last month alone, I'd made more than Dad's entire annual salary as a middle school principal. It started 6 years ago when I was sleeping on my friend Keisha's couch, eating ramen for dinner and coding until 3 a.m. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind leaving law school, especially after Dad spent years bragging to his friends about his daughter, the future lawyer. But I saw something they didn't, a gap in the market for software that helped small businesses manage their supply chains. The first version of my app looked terrible and crashed constantly. Marcus laughed when I showed it to him, calling it cute in that condescending way Big Brother's perfect. Shayna just rolled her eyes and asked when I was going to get a real job. Mom patted my head and suggested I might want to consider going back to school for something more practical. But I kept building, kept learning, kept believing in something they couldn't see. The breakthrough came when a small restaurant chain in Detroit started using my software and saw their costs drop by 30% in 3 months. Word spread. Soon I had 50 clients, then 500, then 5,000. The girl who couldn't afford her own apartment was suddenly running a company that major corporations wanted to license. I never told them about the first million. Or the second. By the time I hit 8 figures, I realized I enjoyed the secret more than I would have enjoyed their reaction. Let them think I was still struggling while I quietly built an empire. Real estate came next. I started small, a duplex in Oakland, a small apartment building in Phoenix. But I had my eye on something bigger. Luxury properties. The kind of places that had once made me feel small and unwelcome. Azure Bay Resort was personal. 3 years ago, I tried to book a weekend there for my birthday. Just me, celebrating finally paying off my student loans. The reservation agent, a woman with a crisp British accent, had been polite but firm. "We're fully booked that weekend," she said, though I could hear keyboard clicking in the background. When I offered to be put on a waiting list, she paused. "Miss Robinson, Azure Bay caters to a very specific clientele. Perhaps I could recommend somewhere more suitable." I'd hung up feeling that familiar sting of being judged before anyone even met me. A young Black woman wanting to spend her own money at their precious resort? Clearly I didn't belong. But money has a way of changing what's suitable. When Azure Bay's parent company hit financial trouble last year, I was ready. Through a series of shell companies and strategic partnerships, I acquired a controlling stake without anyone knowing Robinson Ventures was behind it. The same reservation system that had once rejected me now sent me weekly reports. The irony was delicious, but it got even better when I discovered the guest services notes in their system. Every VIP guest had a file with preferences, special requests, dietary restrictions. I pulled up my family's profile and nearly choked on my coffee. James Robinson had requested the family package with maximum value. Translation: he wanted to look impressive without spending too much. The notes mentioned that he'd called 3 times to ask about upgrade possibilities and had been told the premium suites were outside his price range. Dad was trying to give everyone a luxury vacation on a budget that barely covered standard rooms. He'd probably told the family they were getting the royal treatment while secretly sweating about the cost. My phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. "Girl, your assistant called me asking about your travel preferences. Are you about to do something crazy?" I smiled and typed back, Define crazy. The kind that ends up on the news.
Nah.
Just a little family bonding. The resort director, David Chen, called me that afternoon with updates. He'd been running Azure Bay for 2 years, but this was his first time meeting the mysterious owner who'd saved his job when the acquisition went through. Miss Robinson, everything is prepared for your arrival. I've reviewed the other Robinson reservation, and I have to ask, is this going to be a problem? Not a problem, David. Just treat them exactly like any other guests who booked the standard package. No upgrades, no special treatment, no exceptions. And don't mention my arrival to anyone on staff except your most trusted managers. Understood. And your accommodations? The owner's villa. I'll be staying the full week. After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about all the times I'd tried to prove myself to them. The family dinners where I'd share good news only to have it dismissed or minimized. The holidays where my success was treated like a phase I'd eventually outgrow. They'd spent so many years waiting for me to fail that they'd missed me succeeding. I pulled up the Azure Bay website and browsed through photos of the infinity pools, private beaches, and 5-star restaurants my family would be enjoying. The same family that hadn't thought to include me in their plans. But I'd be there anyway. In the villa they'd never see, with access they'd never get, watching their vacation unfold from a perspective they'd never imagine. Some people say the best revenge is success. But I was about to discover that the best revenge is successful surprise. The private jet touched down in St. Lucia at 6:47 a.m., 12 hours before my family's commercial flight was scheduled to arrive. I'd never flown private before, another first that my family would never know about. As we taxied toward the VIP terminal, I watched the sun paint the Caribbean sky in shades of pink and gold, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure anticipation. David Chen met me at customs with a discreet black SUV and a warm smile. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of professional polish that came from years in luxury hospitality. Miss Robinson, welcome to Azure Bay. I hope your flight was comfortable. It was perfect, thank you. And please call me Danielle when we're alone. Save the formal stuff for when there are witnesses. He laughed, and I could see him relaxing slightly. Understood. I have to say, I'm curious about this family situation. In 15 years of hotel management, I've never had an owner request to remain anonymous from other guests. Trust me, it's going to be more entertaining than any reality show you've ever watched. The drive to the resort took 20 minutes through winding roads lined with tropical vegetation. As we pulled through the gates of Azure Bay, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I'd had 3 years ago when they'd rejected my reservation. But this time, I owned the place doing the rejecting. The resort was even more beautiful than the photos suggested. Pristine white sand beaches, crystal clear water, and architecture that somehow managed to look both modern and timeless. Staff members in crisp white uniforms moved quietly across manicured grounds, preparing for another day of providing paradise to guests who could afford it. The owner's villa is just up this hill, David said, pointing toward a secluded area I couldn't see from the main resort. Complete privacy, but close enough that you can observe everything if you choose to. Perfect. Now, let's go over the plan one more time. We spent an hour in his office reviewing every detail. My family would arrive at 7 p.m., check into their standard rooms in Building C, the farthest from the beach with a lovely view of the parking lot and service areas. They'd booked the basic meal plan, which meant buffet breakfast and lunch, with dinner reservations at the casual beachside grill. No access to the exclusive restaurants, no spa credits, no room service. Meanwhile, I'd be in a 4,000-square-foot villa with an infinity pool, private chef, and direct beach access. What about staff? I asked. Who knows I'm here? Just me, the head of security, and your personal concierge, Maria. Everyone else thinks you're a VIP guest who prefers privacy. Maria's worked here for 8 years, completely trustworthy.
Good.
I want to blend in when I'm around the resort. No special treatment, no obvious deference. I'm just another guest enjoying her vacation. David nodded, though I could see the questions in his eyes. May I ask what you're hoping to accomplish? I thought about how to explain it without sounding petty or vengeful. My family has spent years making assumptions about who I am and what I'm capable of. They've excluded me from important moments because they decided I wouldn't fit in or couldn't afford to participate. This is my chance to show them who I really am without having to say a word. He said, understanding dawning in his expression. Sometimes the most powerful statements are the ones we don't have to make out loud. Exactly. I spent the afternoon exploring my villa and getting familiar with the resort layout. The villa was incredible, floor-to-ceiling windows, an outdoor shower, a kitchen I'd never use because I had a private chef, and that infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the ocean. But the best feature was the balcony overlooking the main resort area. I could see everything. The check-in pavilion, the main pool, the restaurants, even the standard guest rooms where my family would be staying. At 6:30 p.m., I positioned myself on a lounge chair by the main pool, wearing a simple yellow sundress and oversized sunglasses. From where I sat, I had a perfect view of the arrival area. I ordered a mojito and waited. They arrived exactly on schedule in a resort shuttle van, looking tired from their long travel day, but excited to finally be in paradise. I watched Dad tip the driver, probably too much, knowing him, while Mom gathered everyone for group photo in front of the Azure Bay sign. Marcus looked exactly the same. Tall, confident, wearing a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's grocery budget. Jennifer clung to his arm, already taking selfies. Shayna was trying to wrangle her twin 8-year-olds while looking around with wide eyes at the luxury surrounding her. And Grandma Rose, bless her heart, was wearing her best church dress and sensible shoes, looking both thrilled and slightly overwhelmed. They had no idea I was 50 feet away, watching their vacation begin. The check-in process took longer than expected. I could see Dad's animated conversation with the front desk clerk, probably asking about upgrades again. Finally, they were led toward Building C with their luggage, chattering excitedly about dinner plans and tomorrow's activities. I finished my mojito and headed back to my villa, smiling to myself. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. I woke up at dawn to the sound of waves and my private chef preparing breakfast on the villa's terrace. Fresh mango, perfectly scrambled eggs, and coffee that probably cost more per cup than my family's entire breakfast budget. The irony wasn't lost on me as I ate in silk pajamas while they were likely fighting over bathroom time in their standard rooms. My plan was simple: casual encounter at the welcome brunch. Every Friday, Azure Bay hosted a complimentary champagne brunch for all guests, a chance to mingle and learn about resort activities. It was the one event where our paths would naturally cross without seeming planned. I chose my outfit carefully. A flowing white sundress that looked effortless, but cost more than most people's rent, paired with simple gold jewelry and wedge sandals. The goal was to look like I belonged here. Wealthy but not flashy, confident but approachable. Everything they'd never seen me be. The welcome brunch was held on the Ocean Terrace, a stunning outdoor space overlooking the beach. I arrived fashionably late, scanning the crowd until I spotted them clustered around a table near the buffet. They looked tired. Dad was explaining something to the waiter with increasingly animated gestures, while Mom kept glancing around nervously. The kids were complaining about the heat, and Grandma Rose was fanning herself with a resort brochure. I took a deep breath and walked over to the mimosa station, positioning myself directly in their line of sight. Oh my God. Shayna's voice cut through the ambient chatter. Mom, look. I turned slowly, feigning surprise, as 7 pairs of eyes locked onto me. The silence stretched so long that other guests started noticing. Danielle? Mom's voice cracked slightly. What are you? How are you here? I smiled and walked over to their table, my wedges clicking confidently against the terrace tiles. Hey, family. What a coincidence, right? Dad stood up so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Did you follow us? Follow you? I laughed, and it came out more genuine than I'd expected. Dad, I'm on vacation. I told you I might have some time off. Marcus found his voice first, because of course he did. Danielle, this place costs like $5,000 a night. How did you even afford? Marcus. Mom's warning tone was sharp, but the damage was done. The question hung in the air like humidity. Before I could answer, Davidson appeared beside our table with perfect timing. "Miss Robinson, I hope you're enjoying your stay. Is there anything else we can arrange for your comfort?" "Everything's been perfect, thank you." I turned to my family with a casual smile. "David, I'd like you to meet my family. This is my father James, my mother Patricia, my brother Marcus and his wife Jennifer, my sister Shayna and her twins, and my grandmother Rose." David's smile was professionally warm as he shook hands around the table. "Wonderful to meet you all. Are you enjoying Azure Bay as well?" "We are," Dad said carefully, "though we're wondering how our daughter managed to book a stay here. We thought it was completely booked." David's expression didn't change, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "Miss Robinson has been a valued guest for quite some time. In fact, she's staying in our owner's villa." The words hit the table like a physical force. Jennifer's mimosa glass stopped halfway to her lips. The twins stopped fidgeting. Even the ambient noise of the brunch seemed to fade. "Owner's villa?" Grandma Rose repeated slowly. I let the moment breathe before speaking. "I should probably explain. I own Azure Bay. Well, 63% of it, technically. Controlling interest." The silence was deafening. Marcus was the first to break. "That's impossible. You can't just buy a resort. Do you know how much this place is worth?" "About 47 million, actually. I paid 52 because I wanted it quickly." Mom's face had gone pale. "Danielle, honey, what are you talking about? You design websites." "I built supply chain management software that's now used by 60% of mid-tier restaurants in North America. The company was valued at 90 million last quarter." I kept my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. "I've been investing in real estate for the past 3 years. This is my 3rd hospitality property." Dad sank back into his chair. "You bought this place?" 3 months ago." Imagine my surprise when my assistant mentioned a Robinson family reservation. I paused, letting that sink in. I decided to come see for myself how the other half lives. Shayna's mouth was literally hanging open. "You're rich." "I'm comfortable." "But you never said anything," Mom whispered. "All these years, you never told us." I looked around the table at their shocked faces and felt something I hadn't expected. Sadness. Not satisfaction or vindication, but genuine sadness for all the conversations we'd never had, all the assumptions that had built walls between us. When was I supposed to tell you? Between the lectures about getting a real job? Or maybe during the family gatherings where you'd ask when I was going to stop playing entrepreneur and do something serious? The truth hung heavy between us, and for the first time in years, no one had a quick comeback ready. The next 2 days were a masterclass in family awkwardness. They'd scatter whenever I appeared by the main pool, whispering among themselves like teenagers planning something they shouldn't. I'd catch them staring at me from across the restaurant, their expressions cycling between awe, confusion, and something that looked suspiciously like calculation. I kept to my routine: morning swim in my private pool, lunch at the exclusive Coral Club restaurant they couldn't access, afternoon reading on my secluded beach. Meanwhile, I watched their vacation slowly unravel through the reports David discreetly provided. Day 1 complaint: their rooms were too small and faced the service road. Day 2: the air conditioning in Marcus and Jennifer's room was inadequate, and the twins were cranky from the heat. Day 3: Dad had been trying to book dinner at Serafina, the resort's 5-star restaurant, but they were mysteriously fully booked every night. I was sipping a passion fruit martini on my balcony when Mom appeared at the villa's entrance gate Tuesday evening. The security guard called up for permission, and I almost said no. Almost. Let her up. She climbed the stone steps slowly, taking in the infinity pool, the outdoor kitchen, the panoramic ocean view that probably cost more per night than her mortgage payment. When she reached the main terrace, she just stood there for a moment, speechless. "This is incredible, Danielle." "Thank you. Would you like a drink?" She sat down carefully on one of the plush outdoor sofas, like she was afraid she might damage it. "I don't understand how this happened. When did you become this?" "This." I gestured around the villa. You mean successful? About 3 years ago, financially speaking. But I've been working toward it since I was 22. But you never said anything. We had no idea. I set down my martini and looked at her directly. Mom, when was the last time you asked me how my business was really doing? Not making jokes about my little ventures or suggesting I get a backup plan, but actually asking. She was quiet for a long moment. We were worried about you. Living on couches, eating ramen, working all those crazy hours. It looked like you were struggling. I was struggling. That's what building something looks like in the beginning. But every time I try to share a small win or talk about my progress, someone in this family had a comment about reality or responsibility or getting my head out of the clouds. We just wanted you to be secure. Secure like Dad's teaching job that got cut last year? Or secure like Marcus's sales position that's been restructuring for 6 months? Her face flushed. That's not fair. Isn't it? You all spent so much time worrying about my unconventional path that you missed me actually succeeding at it. She looked out at the ocean, then back at me. The kids are miserable. The rooms are so small, and it's been impossible to get dinner reservations anywhere nice. Marcus keeps saying we should have booked somewhere else. And there it was. Mom, are you asking me to use my position here to upgrade your vacation? Well, you do own the place. And we're family. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Family. The same family that didn't think to invite me on this trip because there were only 6 seats available? Danielle, that's not. It's exactly what happened. You planned this for weeks, coordinated everyone's schedules, arranged flights and activities, and never once considered including me. But now that you need something, suddenly we're family. She looked genuinely stricken. We thought you wouldn't want to come. You always seem so independent, so above all this. Above what? Spending time with my family? Above wanting to be included in important moments. I stood up and walked to the railing, looking down at the resort where my siblings were probably complaining about something else they couldn't access. Do you know what I would have given to be invited on this trip? Not for the resort or the luxury, but just to be asked, to be considered. Honey, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. I turned back to her. Mom, I've been making my own way for so long that I forgot what it felt like to want your approval. But standing here now, looking at you asking me to fix your vacation instead of apologizing for excluding me from it, I'm reminded why I stopped trying. Her eyes filled with tears. What can we do? How can we fix this? You can enjoy the vacation you planned without me. The standard rooms, the buffet meals, the limited restaurant access, that's what you budgeted for, right? That's the experience you thought was good enough for everyone except me. But surely you could. Could what? Pull some strings? Use my connections? Make a few calls? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Those are the exact words you used to dismiss my business for years. Danielle's always making calls, pulling strings, thinking she's so important. Well, congratulations. You were right. I do have connections now. I just don't feel particularly motivated to use them. She sat there for another few minutes, looking small and defeated on my expensive furniture. Finally, she stood up. I should go. The kids will be wondering where I am. Mom. She turned back at the gate. There are 2 restaurants on the island that aren't part of this resort. Giovanni's in the village and the beach shack about 10 minutes south. Both take walk-ins. It wasn't much, but it was something. And despite everything, she was still my mother. After she left, I called David. How's the Robinson family settling in? About as well as you'd expect. Should I anticipate more visits from your relatives? Probably. But the answer remains the same. Standard package, standard treatment. No exceptions. Understood. Though I have to say, this is the most educational week I've had in years. I laughed despite myself. Stick around. It's not over yet. The final 3 days of their stay played out like a carefully choreographed dance of avoidance and awkward encounters. I'd see them at breakfast, maintaining polite distance while they huddled together, whispering and shooting glances my way. The twins had started pointing at me and asking loud questions about the rich lady who knows mommy, which made every interaction even more uncomfortable. But it was Thursday morning that changed everything. I was doing laps in my infinity pool when Maria, my concierge, appeared at the villa's entrance, looking unusually flustered. "Miss Robinson, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's been an incident with your family." I pull myself out of the water, wrapping a towel around my shoulders. "What kind of incident?" "Your grandmother fell on the steps leading to the beach. She's okay, just a sprained ankle, but she's been asking for you specifically." My heart clenched. "Where is she?" "The medical center. Your father is with her." I threw on a cover-up and sandals, my mind racing. Whatever was happening between me and the rest of my family, Grandma Rose was different. She'd never dismissed my dreams or made me feel small. If anything, she'd been the one person who'd always believed I'd make something of myself, even when I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The resort's medical center was a small but well-equipped facility near the main lobby. I found Dad pacing in the waiting area, looking older and more worried than I'd seen him in years. "Danielle, thank God you're here. How is she?" "Bruised and embarrassed, mostly. The doctor says she'll be fine, but she refuses to let them treat her properly until she talks to you." I pushed through the door to find Grandma Rose sitting on an examination table, her ankle elevated and wrapped in ice. Despite everything, she smiled when she saw me. "There's my successful grandbaby. Come here and give me some sugar." I hugged her carefully, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender and determination. "Grandma, what were you doing on those steps?" "They're steep. Trying to find you, baby girl. I've been watching this foolishness all week, and it's time somebody set something straight." The doctor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, looked between us. "I'll give you some privacy. But Mrs. Robinson, you need to keep that ankle elevated." When we were alone, Grandma Rose took my hand in both of hers. "Sit down, Danielle. We need to talk." I perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, suddenly feeling like I was 8 years old again. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. "Prouder than you know. But I'm also disappointed." "Disappointed? In me. In all of y'all. This whole situation is a mess, and everybody's too stubborn to fix it. Grandma, they excluded me from this trip. They made plans for months, without even considering. And you bought the whole damn resort to prove a point." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Baby, I understand why you're hurt. Lord knows your family has some learning to do about supporting each other. But holding on to that hurt isn't helping anybody." I felt tears pricking at my eyes. They've never believed in me. Even now, after everything I've accomplished, they only came to me when they wanted something fixed. "You're right, and that's on them. But what are you going to do about it?" "What do you mean?" "You can keep proving you don't need them, or you can show them how to be the family you all deserve to be. Success isn't just about money, baby girl. It's about using what you have to lift people up." I sat there for a long moment, listening to the sounds of the resort outside, guests laughing, waves lapping, life continuing in paradise while my family fell apart in a medical center. "What would you do?" I asked finally. I'd remember that family isn't perfect, but it's still family. And sometimes the person with the most power has to be the first one to extend grace. That evening, I called David and arranged for my family to be moved to the premium suites. Not as a reward, but as a gift, the kind of unconditional gesture I'd been wanting from them for years. I didn't tell them it was coming. The next morning, they simply found their belongings moved to oceanfront suites with private balconies and butler service. Along with the room upgrade came access to all restaurants, spa credits, and a private cabana on the beach. The note I left in each room was simple. Family means including everyone, especially when it's hard. Love, D. On their last day, Dad found me reading by my private pool. He looked different somehow, humbler, more thoughtful. "I owe you an apology," he said, settling into the chair beside me. "Several apologies, actually. Dad, let me finish. We were wrong to exclude you from this trip. We were wrong to dismiss your business for all these years. And we were wrong to only reach out when we needed something from you." He paused, looking out at the ocean. "I think we were so caught up in our own ideas about success and security that we missed watching our daughter become extraordinary. I'm still the same person I always was. No, you're not. You're the person you always had the potential to be, despite us not seeing it. And I'm sorry it took a sprained ankle and a lecture from your grandmother to make me realize that. I reached over and took his hand. I'm sorry too. For the secrets, for the games. For not finding a better way to show you who I'd become. So, what happens now? I smiled, thinking about Grandma Rose's words about grace and lifting people up. Now we plan a real family vacation. One where everyone gets invited from the beginning. Even if it means dealing with Marcus's terrible vacation planning skills. Especially then. Someone has to make sure you all don't end up at a 2-star motel in Atlantic City calling it a beach resort. He laughed, really laughed for the first time all week.
Deal.
But next time, we're letting the successful entrepreneur handle the bookings.
Deal.
As I watched their shuttle disappear down the resort's winding driveway, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not just for my business or my future, but for my family. We had work to do, conversations to have, and years of assumptions to unpack. But for the first time in a long time, I believed we might actually do it. Success, it turned out, wasn't about proving you didn't need anyone. It was about choosing to need the right people in the right ways at the right time. And sometimes, it was about owning the resort where your family vacations, just in case they forget to invite you.